Unisa, Professor Lenka Bula. Do it again. If I do it again. Good evening. Evening. May I ask everyone to kindly stand for the arrival of the Honourable Lady Justice Meaza Ashenafi Mengistu and for our Principal and Vice Chancellor of Unisa, Professor Lenka Bula. Thank you. Thank you. The Honourable Lady Justice Meaza Ashenafi Mengistu, Principal and Vice Chancellor of Unisa, Professor Lenka Bula, members of the Judiciary, program participants, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is a tremendous honor and privilege for me to welcome you to the 2024 Founders Lecture and Vice Chancellor's Gala Dinner. This prestigious occasion reflects our shared commitment to academic excellence and the intellectual exchange of ideas, engagement, and debate. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Professor Rehana Kasim from the Mercantile Law Department in the College of Law at Unisa, and I have the great pleasure of serving as your program director this evening. On behalf of the University of South Africa, I extend a very warm and hearty welcome to each of you this evening. We appreciate all of you being here. We are thrilled to gather tonight for this momentous occasion, where we have the privilege of hearing from an extraordinary keynote speaker, the Honourable Lady Justice Meaza Ashenafi Mengistu, former President of the Federal Supreme Court of Ethiopia, who will be addressing us on the topic of the role of women in delivering justice in Africa, passive or active agents. May I kindly ask you to switch your cell phones off or to put them on silent? The bathrooms are on my right-hand side. If you walk straight, you'll come to a glass door, and then you will see the bathrooms on your left side. While we value meaningful discussion, we must also be mindful of time. I kindly and respectfully ask each speaker to stay within the allocated time. Before I invite our Vice Chancellor to the stage, we would like to play the Unisa corporate video. It will be playing on the screens in front of you. Thank you.
Whatever the difficulties, Africa shall be at peace. However improbable it may sound to the skeptics, Africa will prosper.
More than anything, Unisa must be celebrated as a pioneer of the distance education model, an enduring gift not only to South Africa, the continent, but to the human civilization in the knowledge arena the world over.
Education is the light in a dark room. It's the spark of a dream, a passport to the future, and the seed of generational change. Through education, we reflect on yesterday and define tomorrow. Rooted in South Africa and the African continent, Unisa can truly claim to be the African university in the service of humanity. Unisa stands at the pinnacle of education through open distance e-learning, with a footprint of students in more than 100 countries worldwide. Since the founding of the university in 1873 as an examining body, we have been a trailblazer. To this end, Unisa is working on the following catalytic niche areas. Marine studies. As a discipline, marine studies covers field-specific studies like marine ecology and biology to policy-related studies like marine spatial planning and coastal economies. Many other areas of marine research and studies are covered in this niche area. Aviation and aeronautical studies. Aviation and aeronautical studies covers specializations in areas as diverse as aeronautical engineering and aerospace safety, and South Africa's 18 airports forms a major role player for passengers and goods transitioning to and from our country. This is a niche that supports a major component of the country's economy. Automotive studies. The South African automotive industry is projected to grow from 600,000 to 1.4 million vehicles a year in production. There is major potential to be explored in Unisa's commitment to automotive studies. In 2022, students from the Department of Mechanical Engineering participated in the Sasol Solar Challenge with their solar-powered car that travels from Johannesburg to Cape Town without using a single drop of fuel. Energy studies. Unisa's Institute for Development of Energy for African Sustainability specializes in designing chemical processes, reducing material and energy consumption, as well as carbon dioxide emissions. Space studies and Square Kilometer Array. Unisa has been extensively involved in the $1 billion Square Kilometer Array project since 2012. The Unisa Observatory, situated on the main campus, is a modern, well-equipped facility housing a 14-inch telescope where the College of Science, Engineering and Technology offers undergraduate courses in astrophysics and astronomy with specialization up to PhD level. Fourth Industrial Revolution and Digitalization. The fourth industrial revolution can be described as the advent of cyber-physical systems, involving entirely new capabilities for people and machines. Examples include genome editing and new forms of machine intelligence. The College of Graduate Studies will support and promote studies into 4IR and digitalization, while the Graduate School of Business Leadership presents a short learning program on big data. Natural sciences. The simplest definition of biotechnological studies is applied biology. Through the application of biological knowledge and techniques to develop products or services, Unisa's College of Agriculture and Environmental Sciences is one of the main partners in the African Biogenome Project, a coordinated Pan-African effort piloting a project with a key objective of sequencing 100,000 endemic species. Health and/or pharmaceutical studies. The Department of Health Studies is prepared for the challenge of equipping their students with research skills and expertise in the field of health and pharmaceutical studies. The UNESCO Unisa Africa Chair in Nanoscience and Nanotechnology is leading the international research into the nano-delivery of medicinal drugs, including African herbal medicine. The College of Law offers an elective undergraduate model on medical law. Feminist, womanist, Wusadi theorizations. In the College of Human Sciences, the Institute for Gender Studies, the College of Education and the Graduate School of Business all contribute to the interdisciplinary research into eliminating gender-based violence, homophobia and transphobia, and discrimination against women in the workplace and the political arena. The Institute also uses education about gender as an effective way to achieve gender equality and the empowerment of women. Student support and co-curricular activities. Unisa is uniquely placed to offer creative and radically innovative ways of enhancing student support. Unisa's College of Graduate Studies has developed a whole range of training programs to assist and encourage students. The Advocacy and Resource Center for Students with Disabilities promotes the principle of access for success, and the Student Development Division provides students with social support and leadership development services. These niche areas find expression in the rich tapestry of our disciplines included in the College of Accounting Sciences, Agriculture and Environmental Sciences, Economic and Management Sciences, Education, Graduate Studies, Human Sciences, Law, Science, Engineering and Technology, the Graduate School of Business Leadership, and the Thabo Mbeki School of Public and International Affairs. As Africa's leading open-distance e-learning university, we can reflect with great pride on the past 150 years of transformational education, and we are confident in our ability to succeed and become a truly high-performance university as we define tomorrow.
I'm very pleased to inform you that tonight we are also celebrating our first female principal and vice-chancellor of Unisa in over 145 years, who is Professor Puleng Lenkabula. It is my pleasure to invite Professor Puleng Lenkabula to officially welcome us and our distinguished guests, and to provide context to tonight's Founders Lecture. Ladies and gentlemen, in the interest of time, we ask you to please enjoy your entree while we welcome Professor Lenkabula. Please join me in giving her a warm round of applause.
Good evening. Sanbonan, Riperil. I was just asking the program director, without involving myself in a project that's not mine, if it's not best to have music and then we do the entree. But because I'm already here, I will not change her invitation that you enjoy breaking bread together. So let's proceed. I'll proceed. Thank you. Are you ready? Please, bon appetit. May you enjoy your food as you listen to the welcome. I think that is welcome. This scarf that I'm wearing is from Ethiopia, and I want to declare, before I declare to Unisa Council, it has been beautifully given to me by our keynote speaker this evening. So, thank you. I needed to declare, colleagues, lest I get in trouble. Let me take this opportunity to thank the program director, Professor Rihanna Kasim, Department of Mercantile Law at the University of South Africa. Let me also recognize, in the spirit of universal access, our commitment as the University of South Africa to ensure that students and staff and people who require universal access support are supported through sign language interpretation. And I want to acknowledge Ms. Mhlweni Ngobile and Ms. Nonhlanhla Sikakane. They are the sign language interpreter, and I'm very appreciative of their presence and making all who want to participate but who cannot hear to hear you. The chairperson of the Council of the University of South Africa and other members present here, Dr. Dan Musia, the Executive Dean, the Executive and extended management of the University of South Africa. Colleagues, it's not done in protocol, but I will break it. Can I request members of MENCOM to stand up so that all of you guests and students would know who they are? Can I please just request you to stand? Yes, please stand up as fast as we can so that colleagues, in front of me is the Chief Engineer of the University, Mr. Mutebele, Matsia Baba Mutebele, responsible for operations and facilities. Can I request a round of applause? You may be seated. You may be seated. Next to him is Professor Solomon Mahanu, who studies parasites, but has become a very, very strong human management people, and I'm quite appreciative. Professor Mahanu is the Vice Principal, Institutional Advancement. Thank you very much, Professor Mahanu. And next to them is Dr. Molapo, responsible for the strategy of the university, Vice Principal Strategy. Thank you. You may be seated. If you found it easy to log in and confirm your participation this evening and the ICT systems did not give you any problems, you know that the Chief Digital Officer, we still use CIO, which is in the past. I'm aspiring for Chief Digital Officer. In this instance, the Vice Principal ICT, Ms. Nakene, next to, in front of us. Can we please, you may be. Then we have the Registrar of the University, Professor Siputa, who's responsible for the 400,000 students registered in this university from every corner of the world. Professor Siputa, thank you. And then colleagues, we have, Unisa is aspiring to help the state in supporting our students. And to do so, we must manage our finances and our investment as well. And we have the Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Byron Stanfleet. Can I also request a round of applause? And you well know that we are just in a good trajectory in that direction, so I'm quite appreciative of the team. I thought it was important for me to introduce who are the co-constructors of the success of the university. It's not a one woman but I'm very appreciative to work with this team. So thank you very much, team. Of course, this university has produced excellent leaders in the country. And whilst I want to recognize all of you, let me recognize the former Deputy Chief Justice of the university, of the country. No, don't worry, it wasn't a mistake. He's an alumnus of the University of South Africa. So Justice Muckleneuk is an alumnus of this university. And I think he deserves a round of applause. But he's not only the alumnus of this university. If you read the Robben Island book that Unisa produced, he's the youngest to be sent to Robben Island in the pursuit of killing the dreams and aspirations of freedom and liberation for our country. And we are very grateful, Justice Muckleneuk. People like you have helped our society. Even as we make mistakes, we are hopeful that the aspirations for that which you and others fought for will be accomplished. So can I request a round of applause, please? No university wouldn't be proud to have such important alumnus representing the best of human soul and the best of human aspirations in our world. And of course, this evening, we are here to listen to the eminent 2024 Founders Lecturer, Honourable Justice Meaza Ashenafi Mengistu, the former President of the Federal Supreme Court of Ethiopia. Of course, you know, I had to be a little bit dramatic so that I hear whether the ululations, the Mikhulukwane, would come. I did not hear those, so I'll wait. No, colleagues. Yes, I think I know that one. Thank you very much. And we're quite honored, Excellency, that in your busy schedule, you found it imperative to join us as the University of South Africa. And of course, we have judges from our justice system. We have Honourable Justice Baratang Muchumi, Justice of the Supreme Court of Appeal in South Africa. I think the same colleagues. I wish she was our alumnus, but she's from Ngoe, which is a sister university, so we are appreciative of your presence, Justice Muchumi. Esteemed judges from various South African courts, and I've been told that we have many judges who are in attendance. Can I request them to stand up just for me, not to make any mistake in our protocols? Can I, if there are judges that are here, that... So you see, when Unisa coughs, the legal scholarship, if you are a student and you have these many judges and you don't have the opportunity to learn from them, we would not have done justice to ourselves as a university. So if you're a student, please, judges are very serious. But we're at university. If you are a student and you miss the opportunity to ask and to try to look for, even if it's a 3 minutes mentorship, then I would have lost, and I don't want to lose colleagues. So students, take advantage of the presence of the judges from the various South African courts. Our public protector of the Republic of South Africa, Advocate Koleka Kaleka. Can I please request a round of applause? I heard many people saying they only know you from television, and they're now happy to see you. And thank you very much for honoring us this evening. Officials from the national, provincial, and local government present, I noted that there are presidency officials who are here, and I'm very appreciative. Dr. Ngobo, I see you here, Mapoloba, so welcome. On behalf of the presidency, we appreciate the presence. I think they require a round of applause. And colleagues, as a university, we often have a panel of respondents to ensure that even if we may not have fully understood what the lecturer would have shared, at least they help unearth and project some of the salient issues that our lecturer would have projected. And in this instance, I want to acknowledge Advocate K. Moroka, Senior Counsel, Tulamela Chambers. Ms. Pamela Nyao, Africa Black Feminist Legal Scholar, Unisa. Ms. Daniela Fisser, a PhD candidate at the University of Pretoria, our neighbor and sister university. Can I also request you to acknowledge? And finally, colleagues, representatives from other universities present, members of business, representatives from legal fraternity, the South African National Defence Force, the South African Police Services in attendance, members of the university epistemic communities, students, staff, professionals, academicians, members of Unisa National Student Representative Council, members of the media, our entertainers, Azanian Pulse Ensemble, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I'm sure some of you must be saying, now you should be concluding your speech. But I know after this, we will not be so strict on the protocols. As our Chancellor, His Excellency President Beki, often says, I have no option but to ensure that the table of precedence, the protocol, is dealt with at all times. So please forgive me if I took too long, but I'll try in this instance to be a bit short. It is my privilege and honor to welcome you to the 2024 Founders Lecture under the theme, Delivering Justice in Africa. Are women passive or active agents? It could be a rhetorical question for you if you are a woman who is an active agent in your own life. But maybe it couldn't, depending on the interpretative lens that you will follow. The idea of a Founders Lecture was introduced in the university with the aim of encouraging the university and its epistemic communities, but also its engagement with society, to focus on critical issues in higher education in society, both nationally and at global levels. Over the past 21 years, a variety of topics were presented by eminent and renowned scholars locally, continentally, and globally. This has established the Founders Lecture as a premium forum for intellectual exchange of ideas and engagements for Africa and the world, and for Unisa in the world. Since the establishment in 2003, the Founders Lecture has attracted some of the finest thinkers, the thought leaders, the intellectuals of our times, many of whose works reverberate across generations, and in the interest of time, I will not venture to enlist their names. Besides their names and the topics they addressed are included in today's program. So I invite you to look into the program. This year, the University of South Africa is honored to have Honourable Lady Justice Meaza Ashenafi Mengistu. She has had an illustrious and distinguished career in public service in Ethiopia, in the continent, and in the world. Her role as the former president of the Federal Supreme Court of Ethiopia, the equivalent of Chief Justice in South Africa, meant that she was the leader of one of the three arms of the state in Ethiopia, the judiciary. As the first woman, I think I require a round of applause, colleagues. It sounds very nice. As the first woman to do so, she is indeed a trailblazer and the greatest illustration yet that Africa is changing for the better, and indeed millions of youth can and must be inspired by her outstanding contribution to Africa's development and renewal. Given the history of the world and African region on the oppression and exploitation of women, the rise of women into positions of public trust and power is quite a significant part of the process of social transformation in society. It is not only about participation and representation. I need to repeat this. It is not only about participation and representation, but also part and parcel of the broader struggles for the gender equality and the pursuit of a non-sexist and a patriarchally free society where gender and hierarchy are not existent. Once more, we're truly honored that Justice Mengistu, daughter of Africa, our sister, an intellectual who not only has served her country but the United Nations and other independent and quite important structures such as advocacy for women lawyers and for women in many of our countries and in the world. We're quite appreciative that you have agreed to grace us with your presence, your thoughts about your chosen topic tonight. Welcome to South Africa. Welcome to Unisa, the home of leaders and the home of those who agitate for freedom in our world. I think we need to give her a round of applause. My utmost respect and gratitude also goes to the Honourable Justice Baratang Muchumi of the Supreme Court of Appeal in South Africa for agreeing to join us and help frame the issues in relation to the topic and the lecture. And for us, it is quite important because she forms part of a community of women in the International Association of Women Judges, and we're quite hopeful that we will learn from you, Justice Baratang Muchumi. I think she deserves a round of applause. And equally, it is my pleasure to welcome our accomplished respondents. I've already referred to them in the table of precedence, and I truly appreciate that you have agreed to be the intellectual interlocutors to the presentation and the lecture that's going to be given. As part of contextualizing our discussion today, I wish to remember that in Africa, we all know too well that our legal systems, due to the legacies of colonialism and neocolonialism, still have a long way to go in terms of transformation and substantive delivery of social justice to the people. Most of the legal systems still undermine our histories, our knowledge systems, especially Africa's knowledge systems, our practices and traditions here in Africa. We call this the cultural crime of colonialism. On the question of decolonizing the law school or faculty, if you like, Adebisi Foluke argues that, and I would like to quote, decolonial thought in law acknowledges that the legal history which created our present realities has not always been benign or kind. In producing and maintaining global inequalities, extreme poverty, exploitation of labor, environmental degradation, torture, oppressions and oppressions, physical destructions of lives and livelihoods, immediate and gradual death, the law has not always been innocent, and it is our responsibility to make the law to serve justice and to pursue justice, and when it doesn't, to come collectively together, even as we sit here, to look at those pivot points to making it a foundational justice-seeking community. That is the legacy of colonialism and apartheid. In terms of legal foundations and countries we have inherited in post-independence. But what shall we do about it today? What does it mean for women, and what is their role in these critical challenges and processes of change? Like many of you here today, I'm not going to attempt to answer that question. It is beyond my, you know what I mean. But I know that Honourable Justice Mengistu will be answering these and many other related questions. We also know that her contemporary and fellow Justice Muchumi will also bring a lens into these issues. But I want to remember the words of Patricia McFadden, a former professor at this university, a feminist scholar who says about political economy, which is very instructive even as we think about the law. She says, feminist political economy, which brings women's lived realities, their struggles, their dreams and agencies to numerous sites of contestations and power within all societies, and which insists that women are entitled to their full humanity and dignity. This is the epistemological approach that has enabled a distinction between gender and feminism to be conceptually and politically drawn as the first steps in charting of a clearer meaning of what feminism in Africa means and is about. Although Africa continues to make strides, women are still most disadvantaged here in our region and the rest of the world. Wars and violence, poverty, landlessness, illiteracy, human trafficking, and other human-made social ills become quite elaborate in the faces and the histories or experience of women. I'm hopeful that the collaboration that Africa requires, from Ethiopia to South Africa and to the world, will enable us, including through our Learning Center, to learn even more from our colleagues and their leaders in Ethiopia. I hope that we listen and engage into the lecture that we receive and will be inspired to accelerate change agenda, especially at this time when we're also looking on gender-based violence and femicide in our country, in the world, and in the continent. Ladies and gentlemen, before I sit down, let me take this opportunity to highlight a few aspects about the work of Justice Mengistu. But this is not my full responsibility, and I think it will be shared. For those of us who know Justice Mengistu, we know her as a women's rights advocate who has made immense contributions, amongst others, as the co-founder of Ethiopian Women Lawyers Association. I think that deserves a round of applause. She's also the founder of Women's Bank, Inner Bank. Colleagues, you heard me. It's not only the women lawyers and judges. She saw that for the women judges, women lawyers, and the law and the agency of women to change the socio-economic conditions, that a bank must be established. I think this requires a round of applause. And both organizations, colleagues, were the first of their kind in Ethiopia. In 1995, Justice Mengistu co-founded she co-founded other organizations to provide defense for women who couldn't afford justice. And this was done in her executive leadership for 8 years, which was instrumental in propelling the cause of gender justice and equality in Ethiopia. In 1996, she served as the attorney in high-profile cases of 14-year-old girl who was en route home from school when she was abducted by a mob of men seeking to procure her as a bride for would-be husband. The girl fatally shot the would-be husband who had beaten and raped her. Mengistu, in support of the girl, took the case pro bono to demonstrate that even though the abduction into marriage is one of Ethiopia's oldest traditions, the girl acted in self-defense. Mengistu successfully defended the girl, and the case led to a government outlawing the Ethiopian custom of kidnapping girls for wedlock. Colleagues, we have a name for this in our country. We also know that is a challenge. We know it, eh? What do we call it? Exactly. And therefore, our cultures must learn from one another. Finally, colleagues, we look forward to hearing from Lady Justice Mengistu tonight as she shares her thoughts, and we hope that you will enjoy Unisa in the pursuit of being the university that is committed to shaping futures for the benefit of our country, for the benefit of the continent, and for Africa's knowledge systems, civilizations, and ideas about justice to manifest in the world. I'm proud that South Africa, Justice Muckleneuk, you're here. We saw you on TV, fighting for the dignity of the Palestinians. And we're quite grateful that this is the effort that our country is bequeathing the world, advocating and fighting for the dignity of all in the world, no matter our religious or cultural convictions. Where justice is not done, it is all our obligation to search and to seek it. And I'm proud that South Africa stood out and supported this important cause. Can I give our alumnus also a round of applause? Thank you. Bon appetit, please eat. I apologize, I was between you and your plate. Bon appetit, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Vice-Chancellor, for drawing our attention to our distinguished guests here with us tonight, and especially for highlighting our distinguished alumni from this great institution. We appreciate your wise and thought-provoking words on what feminism means in Africa. We are in awe of Lady Justice Mengistu's groundbreaking achievements and honored and privileged to have her present here today. Before the Founders Lecture is delivered, I would now like to call upon Honourable Justice Barata Muchumi to address us on the legislative system and its relevance for the pursuit of justice. Justice Muchumi is a judge of the Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein. She has sat on and penned several judgments of public importance. Also an alumna of Unisa, I'm very pleased to say that. She sat on and penned several judgments of public importance, including groundbreaking judgments that have developed our South African jurisprudence and which highlight her care and compassion for the vulnerable in society. She is a founding member of the South African chapter of the International Association of Women Judges and formerly served as the president of this organization, which serves to advance women's rights in the judiciary. Please welcome Justice Muchumi to the podium. Thank you.
Good evening, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. I'm used to colleagues only, but pardon me, I'm new in these things. I acknowledge my colleagues, starting with the Deputy Chief Justice of this country, my brother, my mentor, my everything, Justice Dikgang Muckleneuk. All right. My sister, Mengistu, I was told I must observe protocol, but I'm not going to do the Professor Lenkabula has taken a lot of time doing that, so I'm going to jump into what I have been tasked to do. I will try to look that way and that way, but if I don't, you must know that I've seen you already. As a woman in the judiciary, it's an honor for me to speak on a subject that I deeply resonate with. That is delivering justice in Africa. Are women passive or active agents? My sister, the keynote speaker, will tell us more about that. My responsibility is just to give us pointers and things to think about as she comes on the podium later on, and for us to really take a step back and think about what South African women have actually done, what other parts of African women have done in pursuit of this activism or passive role that they are deemed to play. Historically, you'd know, African women have served as custodians of traditional justice systems. From the Queen Mothers of Ghana to Balobedu Reign Queens in South Africa, women have mediated dispute and upheld community harmony. However, as Prof. Lenkabula has already said, colonial systems disrupted these roles and marginalizing women in formal legal frameworks. But we know, despite this, women continue to fight for their rights, their rightful position in modern justice system, reshaping them to address the unique challenges of marginalized groups. Systemic barriers often portray women as passive agents in delivering justice. We know reports are replete with instances where we are portrayed as such. Gender-based violence cases exemplify challenges in the system that make it difficult for women, whether educated in the justice system or not, to marginalize. Such barriers, including gender-based violence, put us in a lot of pressure to remain silent. However, women continue to rise above this. African women have emerged as outstanding leaders in the pursuit of justice, thus challenging the narratives that depict them as passive agents. These exceptional women that I'll mention have shown us and the right ways, have shown us the path that we can walk in to follow their example. We think of our own Chief Justice Mandisa Maya, who stands for gender equality, who stands against gender-based violence in all its forms. We heard her recently when she was appointed Chief Justice. We think of our Chief Justice of Kenya, Martha, let me get my surname right. But we also think of other women that have made it through this difficult period. The International Association of Women Judges, we know, sets an example where women are leaders, where women set the tone in every province in the country to show that women are not only there, but are agents, not passive, not active in the ordinary sense of the word, but passively pursuing their rightful place. There remains challenges, however, Prof. Lenkabula, challenges that speak to reforms in the legal system, reforms that are necessary for us to talk about. Policy reforms, for instance. We say government must adopt a gender-sensitive legislation and workplace policies. The Chief Justice has put in place now a policy where we talk about gender-based violence, where we talk about discrimination, where we talk about sexual harassment. You heard her during the interview. We need to look at community outreach programs, role models such as our Chief Justice, as I said, show that these campaigns can help break down societal barriers and encourage a new generation of women to enter the legal profession. Professor Lenkabula has said the young people that are here should really try to make means to meet with us, to get as much as they can from us whilst we can. Where there were very few women back in the days that were lawyers, that were judges, that they could look up to and walk in their shoes. We have our senior counsel, my sister, Khomotso Moroka, who is a trailblazer in her own right. She has been there. We just don't acknowledge her as much as we should. She is one of the first few African women that made it so far. Senior counsel was literally not spoken about when she became senior counsel. We have to look at grassroots advocacy, supporting women's organizations to address justice, the gaps in the justice system at community level is crucial, particularly for cases involving gender-based violence, we know. By empowering these organizations, it can help boost women's role as active agents in delivering justice. Implementing these steps will help create a more inclusive and equitable justice system where women are recognized as active agents of change by addressing these structural barriers and promoting gender-sensitive policies we can indeed ensure that women are play their central role in the administration of justice. My sister, this is essentially just to give you a basis. This is also to encourage us tonight to look at these issues, to say, despite the changes, despite the strides that we have made as a country, these remain. We should not relax, we should not be lax about it. We should not think because we now have a Chief Justice, a woman Chief Justice, we should not think that the number of Chief Justice women that are increasing in Africa as a region will give us solutions, will say it's the end of all these challenges. We are opening this debate, we are opening this floor as founders come on board to try and say we should not think we have made it. We have not made it yet. The challenges remain. In conclusion, I want to say women in Africa are not passive agents. We know from our keynote speaker, as we will see, as we will hear from her later on, that we are not passive agents in justice systems. They are trailblazers. Their leadership enriches justice delivery, it enhances public trust, and inspires future generations. I have said to, okay, what did I say then? I have said, of late one walks into any university, law faculty, you see and you have pride in the many number of young women that are studying law. The only difficulty and the only, what I don't know what to call it, is where they disappear to after they have qualified. My sister, Khomotso Moroka, is nodding, and it means that's another challenge that we have to look at. Where they disappear to, it's just unknown. Perhaps there are reports out there that tell us where they disappear to, but they are not there. In the Constitutional Court, my brother, DCJ, would remember there were very few women that appeared before the Constitutional Court to argue very sensitive matters, to argue from a woman's perspective on what was happening before the court. We see it in the SCA, where I sit, that you would find a senior counsel, not even senior, counsel, and senior counsel, a woman senior counsel, being junior, relegated to being junior, allowing a colleague to be the one to present, to speak to us as if she cannot speak. It's another challenge that we have to address. It's not as if government is not helping, it is helping. It has said in many of its cases that come before us, every brief that they give to counsel, that counsel must be accompanied, must have a junior that is a woman and a woman of African descent. So there are steps that are there that are taken, but we should not think we have made it, I say. In the ultimate conclusion, let us commit to amplifying women's voices in pursuit of justice. Their resilience and passion are not only about reshaping the legal justice system, but it is important for the justice system to become a lived reality for all of us and for the future generation, our children, Africa's children. I thank you.
Hope you're having a beautiful day. The song that I'm about to sing now is from the late Mama Brenda Fassie, and it's 10 kilometers. Hope you guys enjoy. Like, she said, 10 kilometers barefooted in the bush. Started raining on the way to fetch some water. A woman had a baby on her back. Got struck by lightning on the way to fetch some water. Yeah, hey, mama, she tried hiding under the trees to save the child. Ooh, a woman had no place to go. Ooh, Connie caught her with the baby on her back. Ooh, and should tears came for her, but it was too late. Oh, mama, 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 oh, mama, mama. She said, 10 kilometers barefooted in the bush. Ooh, started raining on the way to fetch some water. Ooh, a woman had a baby on her back. Ooh, got struck by lightning on the way to fetch some water. Hey, hey, mama, hey. Tried hiding under the trees to save the child. Ooh, a woman had no place to go. Ooh, Nanny caught her with a baby on her back. Ooh, Francia love tears came for her, but it was too late. Oh, mama, 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 oh, mama, mama, mama. 10 kilometers barefooted in the bush. Ooh, started raining on the way to fetch some water. Ooh, a woman had a baby on her back. Ooh,
Can everyone please be seated? Thank you. Thank you for that enlightening performance. Believe me, I speak the language and I will tell you all about it during dessert. I would also like to thank Honourable Justice Muchumi for your compelling insight and for framing the issue so effectively. We appreciate you highlighting that we need to look at community outreach programs and role models, and that a new generation of young women need to enter the legal profession. As you have said, we must do more to ensure that women are recognized as active agents of justice. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, before we move on to our Founders Lecture, I would just like to add, in addition to what Prof. Lenkabula has told us about Lady Justice Mengistu, a few extra tip-top information about her that I think are very interesting. As I'm sure you all know by now, that Lady Justice Mengistu was the first women Chief Justice and President of the Federal Supreme Court of Ethiopia. She is known both nationally and internationally for her work on human rights and social justice, especially the rights of women and girls, women's economic empowerment, constitutional and legal reform, and institution building. Something you may not know, Prof. Lenkabula told us so eloquently the story about Lady Justice Mengistu defending the 14-year-old girl. This was actually made into a movie, and it was screened in many international film festivals, and it won several international awards. Justice Mengistu also was the founder, one of the founders and executive director of the Ethiopian Women Lawyers Association, which and its work led to the protection of women's rights and unprecedented law reforms in favor of women. She has also led a group of women professionals and entrepreneurs to establish the first women's bank in Ethiopia. She has received many awards in recognition of her work. These include the African Leadership Prize of the Hunger Project and the Women of Courage for Ethiopia Award. In addition, she was named as one of 30 women changemakers by Equality Now. And she was also featured by Forbes Africa as one of 5 trailblazing African women. There are many other awards I could mention, but I think we're all now quite keen to hear Lady Justice's Founders Lecture. I welcome you to the podium, and we look forward to your delivery of the founding lecture. Please join me in welcoming her to the podium.
Good evening. Please be seated. I have to complain that I am made to speak after these talented musicians, but I hope you'll be patient to listen to me. Yeah. Honourable Justice Muchumi, Honourable Principal Vice President of Unisa, Professor Lenkabula. Also, thank you for that generous introduction. Honourable Madam Public Protector, Honourable former Deputy Chief Justice, Honourable Judge, all protocols observed. Ladies and gentlemen, let me start by wishing you a wonderful Thanksgiving evening for those of you who celebrate Thanksgiving. Even for those of us who are not part of the tradition, grateful that we are here today in this beautiful setting filled with optimism. I am truly privileged to give this speech at this prestigious Unisa Founders Lecture. I also have a sense of pride to be in this country of significance with a historic connection to my country. The bond our two countries built through none other than the former Emperor Haile Selassie of Ethiopia and the legendary Nelson Mandela. I came on Ethiopian Airlines, the pilots of which fascinated Nelson Mandela for being black pilots at that time in the 1960s. Thank you, Vice Chancellor Linkabula, for extending this invitation to me. Much, much appreciated. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, 5 months after my appointment as the first Chief Justice in my country, the London School of Economics Africa Summit invited me as a keynote speaker in the year 2019. After my speech, there was a reception where a diverse group of people were invited. At the reception, a lady has introduced herself to me as a Ugandan professor. I don't remember her name. I believe, triggered by my speech on independence of the judiciary, the professor asked me a very direct question. The professor inquired what I would do if the president, in my case, the prime minister, calls and asks me to make sure that the outcome of a particular case should be a certain way. I told the professor firmly that I would say no. The professor did not seem to be convinced. Similarly, on the day of my appointment, the first question that I got from journalists was, what would I do to restore public confidence in the judiciary? The studies show that over 1/3 of African population do not have trust in the judiciary. The lack of public trust in the judiciary emanates from various factors, including the inadequacies of our institutions to deliver justice with integrity and efficiency. Direct and indirect influence from the executive arm of the government, and because of related challenges. On the other hand, the work of the judiciary, namely resolving disputes arising from conflicting interests, also expose the judiciary to consistent criticism. Ladies and gentlemen, when we speak about justice delivery, we have to keep in mind the various pillars of the rule of law that impact the justice processes and outcomes. The rule of law is composed of some basic principles, such as clear laws that are promulgated through transparent process, accountability of the state, the private sector, and the citizens, fair, impartial, and accessible justice delivery mechanisms, including the judiciary and the law enforcement. Although critical, the role of the judiciary cannot be viewed in isolation from all the other pillars of the rule of law. Ladies and gentlemen, the World Justice Project Rule of Law Index 2024 shows a complex landscape of the rule of law in Africa. Our continent showed notable variability. According to the index, the top performers in sub-Saharan Africa include Rwanda, Namibia, and Mauritius, with Rwanda ranking 40th globally. Among the countries facing significant setbacks are Cameroon, Sudan, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Such trend is part of the global scenario where 59% of the studied countries showed decline over 7 years. Some countries, such as Kenya, emerged as the third largest improvers globally. Your country, South Africa, remains strong in civil justice and ensuring restraint on excessive executive power, which is critical. Congratulations, Madam Justice. Ladies and gentlemen, one of your own, Albie Sachs, strongly argues that African judiciaries are on the cusp of transformation. He wrote, and I quote, "In the latter years of the last century, it was the Indian Supreme Court that injected turbulent, disruptive, and highly productive new energies into the way judges bore themselves in relation to the rest of the society. I would be bold enough to say that the beginning of this century is the courts in Latin America and in Africa that are fulfilling a similar role," end of quote. Despite all the challenges that African courts face, recent developments, particularly in the area of horizontal accountability, seem to substantiate the views of Albie Sachs. For example, 2017 marked a turning point for the Supreme Court of Kenya when it delivered to nullify the results of a presidential election following gross irregularities, even after the Election Commission has declared the incumbent as a winner. In 2022, this trend of judicial independence continued when, after analyzing allegations of irregularities, again in Kenya, the Kenyan judiciary upheld the result of the election despite the opposition by the incumbent government. Similarly, Malawi's Constitutional Court judges exerted independence in the country's 2019 election. The 2019 Malawi presidential election result was overturned after a panel of 5 High Court judges identified widespread, systematic, and grave irregularities and called for new elections. Furthermore, Senegal's Constitutional Court overturned former President Macky Sall's effort to delay elections. Ladies and gentlemen, in 2024 alone, 22 African countries have conducted some kind of electoral contest, and therefore, the role of accountability institutions such as electoral boards and the judiciary remains critical. Distinguished participants, African courts also made precedent-setting decisions on women's rights, particularly in the area of harmful customs and traditions that affect the rights of women. Vice Chancellor already referred to this case, and I'm going to share it nonetheless again. When I was a young women's rights activist leading the Ethiopian Women Lawyers Association in the 90s, a high court in one of the southern regions in my country has acquitted on self-defense a 14-year-old girl who, out of desperation, killed the person who abducted her for marriage. Abduction equates to courting in some areas of the southern and western part of Ethiopia, especially in the past decade. Once a girl is abducted and raped, the family has no choice but to negotiate and settle the matter. Unfortunately, this is an accepted traditional practice. In this case, the young girl refused to settle. She picked up a loaded rifle of the abductor himself, and she shot and they killed him. According to the custom of the area, if a woman kills a man, she has to be killed and buried with a dead man. However, this girl got lucky that a local militia has insisted to take her to a detention center. At this point, I heard the story on the radio, and my association intervened to defend her at court of law. After 2 years of trial, the judge acquitted the defendant on account of self-defense. By doing so, the court disrupted social and cultural expectations. The story has become a subject to a BBC documentary film, as well as a widely acclaimed feature film called Defret, meaning courage, in which the girl and myself are protagonists. If you take Ethiopian Airlines, thank you. If you take Ethiopian Airlines sometime soon, you will be able to watch the film in flight. More recently, judiciary under my leadership has also given remedial justice for women and children in the area of property rights, religious freedom, equality before the law during marriage and a divorce. Speaking of gender-responsive court decisions, in March 2021, the Kenyan High Court is praised for dismissing a case filed by a medical doctor, challenging the ban on female genital mutilation in Kenya. The court rejected the argument of the doctor that claims the ban on female genital mutilation, the doctor argues, violates women's right to cultural expression and choice. Can you imagine? As if women choose to be mutilated. There are interesting and educational court decisions with high jurisprudential value, which we need to document. Distinguished participants, tonight, I want to speak about delivering justice in Africa, but also to say a bit about women and justice. The relationship between women and justice is complex. Women in Africa, as well as more generally in the world, experience various forms of discrimination and injustice. On the other hand, women, especially those in the legal profession, play a key role as guardians of justice. Study conducted by UN Women and the UNDP demonstrates that women judges can uniquely address issues such as gender-based violence. Women leaders of the judiciary are seen pushing for justice reforms that are more responsive to women's needs and increasing public trust in the judiciary. Africa has seen 7 current or former Chief Justices: Ethiopia, South Africa, Kenya, Sudan, Seychelles, Zambia, and Lesotho. This is a cause for celebration, but we need more women administrators of justice at all levels. Judicial administration is a challenging and a complex responsibility, but I am proud to have led the judiciary in my country into a transformation path over 5 years. I had 2 advantages for doing so. Firstly, I have worked as a judge early in my career, but I was not an insider as such. The extended experience I got as outside the judiciary, as an activist, officer in the constitutional drafting process, institution builder, UN staff member, gave me a new lens to approach an old formalistic institution from a fresh perspective. Secondly, I have worked with an incredible group of leaders who are veterans in the judiciary. These leaders were awaiting for transformative leadership. Our reform agenda was backed up by legislative reform of foundational laws governing the judiciary and its governance structure, the Judicial Administrative Commission. The foundational laws were followed by numerous regulations and directives to institutionalize the work of the judiciary and lay the foundation of an independent and modern judiciary. Ladies and gentlemen, let me share some of our accomplishments during the reform years. Improvement of the working environment and working conditions of judges through salary increment and provision of residential apartments. Training of judges and support staff to adopt people-centered approach. Appointment of more women judges that increased the number of women judges to 30%. We negotiated with the parliament and increased the budget of the court by 40%. Thank you. Modernizing the court by improving information technology system and communication tools. We improved the court's branding, that's for sure. We issued sexual harassment and other gender-responsive policies. We established 11 children and women-focused benches, as well as a bench book on violence against women to guide our judges. We have improved case flow management by adopting and monitoring the implementation of a case flow management directive. This was crucial to prevent unjustified adjournment by judges. Most of all, we built the confidence of judges by putting in place an independent judicial administration commission and transparent governance and accountability mechanisms. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so proud of my achievement in every responsibility I took, but most importantly, my role as Chief Justice was a historic one. Our achievements were viewed quite positively by an independent public perception survey. Of course, and as you know, institution building is a work in progress, and it is intergenerational. My successors will have to continue to dig deeper to improve justice delivery in my country. I am tempted to speak about the challenges faced by women leaders, even the most accomplished and impactful ones. However, that is a subject for another lecture. But when women leaders tell you that their accomplishments are not recognized, believe them. In any case, in any case, we don't work for recognition. We work for our commitment. Talking about the role of women in justice delivery, we have to recognize the key catalyzing role played by African women lawyers associations in the area of legal reform, advocacy, providing free legal aid to victims of injustice in general, in the promotion and the protection of the rights of women. The efforts of women in the legal profession demonstrates how increasing women's participation can address inequality, build social cohesion, provide strategic solution, and gender-responsive legal environment. Despite the roles played by women legal professionals, there are significant structural and social barriers. To address these challenges, targeted interventions such as mentorship and leadership programs are needed. That is why I am committed to continue mentoring and supporting women in the legal profession. Thank you. The other area of focus for me at this point is to support the drafting of a convention to end violence against women and the girls in Africa by the African Union. While continental bodies such as the European Union and the Latin American have conventions designed to combat violence against women, currently we are working on one for Africa. The drafting and consultation process is supported by South African government and other partners. His Excellency President Ramaphosa was one of the champions of the initiative. This is indeed a good measure, given the leadership role of South Africa on the continent, but also because of the unfortunate widespread exposure of South African women to gender-based violence. It is expected that the convention will be adopted by the Assembly of Heads of States and Governments during the next summit, February 2025 in Addis Ababa. I call upon all of us to collaborate in the domestication and, most importantly, implementation of this convention designed to end violence against women and girls in Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, before concluding my speech, I would like to go back to the point I raised in regards to the rule of law. We all agree on the importance of the rule of law, although the term may have different meaning to different people. I am sure we all have stories about this. There is no one, even a hardcore dictator, would say, I don't like democracy, or I don't like rule of law. But when you see a country or citizens where rule of law is practiced, you recognize it. You hear it when citizens speak. In these countries, one would not see secret trials, arbitrary arrest, indefinite detention without trial, cruel or degrading treatment or punishment, intimidation or corruption in electoral processes. Unfortunately, most countries in our continent are still grappling with the issue of advancing rule of law with some progress, but also setbacks. It is an inspirational goal for most nations. However, aspiration alone will not do the work. We need commitment, organization, and action. Delivering justice requires open government, accountability, rule of law, and equality before the law. To achieve all this, the role of institutions such as Unisa, with a long history of intellectual development, teaching, and learning cannot be sufficiently emphasized. Unisa has a fascinating story and made significant contribution in the intellectual development of South African citizens and beyond, especially to the disadvantaged sector of the population. As a citizen, I am grateful that Unisa has committed to establish the only learning center outside South Africa, Ethiopia. I visited the Unisa office in Addis Ababa, and I was briefed on the contributions made by offering PhD training opportunities, especially to higher education teachers. This is much, much appreciated. Distinguished participants, Unisa and all of you in the academic world are fully aware and striving to continue to generate new organic knowledge based on universal wisdom, but anchored on our own values, ethos, especially those that serve the immediate and long-term needs of our people. Such effort requires support from the government, but also private sector. African private sectors should make an inward-looking investment in the education sector. Strengthening our intellectual foundation is absolutely critical to build a fair and a just society, as well as for sustainable development. Ladies and gentlemen, in view of emphasizing the irreplaceable foundational role of education, I would like to close my speech by a quote from an English thinker. Quote, most intelligent people study the lives and the limbs of life all of their lives. But you grab the trunk of the tree and you can shake all the leaves and the limbs at once. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Honourable Lady Justice Mengistu, for your riveting and deeply impactful address. Your insights have resonated profoundly with us tonight. We are in awe of your achievements to advance women's rights, particularly during your time as the Chief Justice. I am going to leave it to our expert panel of discussants to share their thoughts and reflections on your wonderful lecture. Ladies and gentlemen, the main course will now be served, whereafter our distinguished panel of discussants will share their reflections on tonight's Founders Lecture. Please enjoy your meal and the music. Thank you.
Good evening again, ladies and gentlemen. Sometimes
See
Unisa. Ifile mona, utobina pina mona.
Aratela masawana.
Ifile mona, utobina pina mona.
Aratela masawana. Aratela, aratela mona. Aratela masawana. Aratela, aratela mona. Aratela masawana.
Ifile mona, utobina pina mona.
Aratela masawana.
Ifile mona, utobina pina mona.
Aratela masawana. Aratela, aratela mona. Aratela masawana.
Aratela, aratela mona.
Aratela masawana.
Mona, utobina pina mona.
Aratela masawana.
Ifile mona, utobina pina mona.
Aratela masawana.
Aratela, aratela mona.
Aratela masawana.
Aratela, aratela mona.
Aratela masawana.
Ribizeritswe, mona, mona.
Aratela masawana.
Ribizeritswe, mona,
Aratela
mona.
Aratela masawana. Aratela, aratela
Mona,
aratela masawana. Aratela, aratela aratela masawana.
ifile mona, utobina pina mona.
Aratela masawana.
Ifile mona, utobina pina mona.
Aratela masawana.
Aratela, aratela mona.
Aratela masawana.
Aratela, aratela mona.
Aratela masawana.
Ribizeritswe, mona, mona.
Aratela masawana.
Ribizeritswe, mona, mona.
Aratela
Masawana, mona. Aratela mona,
Aratela
mona.
Aratela masawana.
Mona,
Aratela, aratela
mona.
aratela masawana.
Ifile mona, utobina pina mona.
Aratela masawana. La 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 la. La 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 le. La la la. City
Ladies and gentlemen, we are about to commence with our formal program again. Thank you. Please be seated. We are about to commence. Ladies and gentlemen, to delve deeper into tonight's Founders Lecture, I would like to invite our distinguished panel of discussants to share their reflections. Our first panelist is Advocate Khomotso Moroka, Senior Counsel. She's a practicing senior advocate and serves on a number of boards of multinationals. She's the founder of New Seasons Investment Holdings and has served as the chairperson of Royal Bafokeng Platinum, MTN Putuma Trust, and as a trustee of the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund. She completed a B.Prof from the University of the North and an LLB from the University of the Witwatersrand. Please join me in welcoming Advocate Moroka, Senior Counsel, to the podium. Have a seat. Have a seat. Thank you. Our second panelist is Ms. Pamela Nyawo. She is an African Black feminist legal scholar and a senior lecturer here at Unisa in the Department of Jurisprudence in the College of Law. She holds a BA, LLB, and LLM degree, all obtained from the University of Pretoria, and is currently a PhD law candidate at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. She clerked at the Labour Court for Judge John Murphy and was an assistant investigator at the Office of the Public Protector. She has a keen interest in feminist legal theory. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Pamela Nyawo to the podium. Our third panelist is Ms. Danielle Visser. She is a lecturer in constitutional law and human rights at a private tertiary institution and a consultant in the Sexual and Reproductive Health and Rights at the Center of Human Rights Unit at the University of Pretoria. She holds an LLB degree from Unisa, an LLM degree in multidisciplinary human rights from the University of Pretoria, and is currently a PhD law candidate at the University of Pretoria. She was previously a law clerk to Justice Kalapan at the Constitutional Court of South Africa. Please welcome me in joining her to the podium. Thank you all for being here tonight. We will start with Advocate Moroka SC. Advocate Moroka, may we ask you to briefly share with us your reflections and thoughts on tonight's lecture? Thank you.
Good evening, everybody, and all protocol observed, because you've already done it. But I do have to recognize my compatriot, the former Deputy Chief Justice. I did a number of cases with this gentleman, quite a number that we lost. So I did at least need to say that. And if I may, my co-panelists make me feel a little bit of angst. PhDs, LLMs, and those sorts of things. Muckleneuk and I, all we have is we were lawyers once upon a time. If I may, thank you for an insightful lecture. I personally enjoyed it. I have been in the trenches for 41 years. I'm not old. I've just been in the trenches for 41 years. And the issues that you spoke about resonate because these are the issues that we started off, for instance, in 1994, when we only had, in fact, we had no women judges except, I think, can't remember her name, but there was one white woman judge in the country, whom we then interviewed Ms. Lucy Mailula in 1994. And the strange thing about it, when we talk about history and we talk about that first interview and that first appointment, we sometimes do not understand or realize how hard it was to change mindsets, how hard it was to convince people, judges who'd been there for years, that she was an appropriate candidate, that she needed to be appointed. And the biases and the prejudices and the chauvinism just came through. And so while we celebrate, we must never forget where we come from and understand that the journey is still long. But the one thing that struck me about what you said was the issue about a third of Africans on the continent do not trust the judiciary. That just struck me because I'm not sure whether we've done such a test in South Africa or such an investigation to test the level of trust in South Africa. But might I refer to the study that you referred to, you made reference to the UN study. Because the purpose of the study was also to look at where the judiciary on the continent is, where women in the judiciary are located, what the positions of power or the non-positions of power that women occupy. And that study also struck me in the sense that the assertions that were made in the study, and I'm looking for them, were essentially about how women change not only the narrative, but change how society perceives how justice is served. You talked about, who's timing me? Because I can talk forever. Where you talk about the legality issues, the subtext of that is how society perceives the delivery of justice. Because we can have all sorts of policies, we can have all sorts of judgments. You must read his judgments. Nobody reads these judgments. The people in the village don't read those judgments, but the lived experience must filter through, and women have a role in doing that. So when you talk about trust, when you talk about the issues that have to do with delivery of justice, we have to understand lived experiences of our people and understand what it is that we're talking about when we talk about the pillars of delivery. When we talk about, your sister colleague here will talk about case lines. We as lawyers hate case lines. I have a judge I was appearing before 3 days ago, and she was talking about case line. The people that are sitting behind me have to understand how do they experience the efficiency of the courts? Because that efficiency then talks to their experience of justice. So when you talk about trust in the system, it's all about how people experience your delivery of justice. I was talking to a lady judge at my table, and I was saying to her, I don't know what judges do. She says to me, but you must know. I said, no, I don't, because all I know is standing in front of courts, arguing my cases, arguing on behalf of litigants. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is how my poor clients, the poor clients that we represent, the women that we represent, the fights that we engage in trying to assert justice, how do those people experience us? So it was very interesting about how you articulated those issues, how the study articulates those issues. But if I may go to the study itself and just for the benefit of those who haven't seen the study and the assertions that are made. The first assertion is that women's meaningful participation can enhance judicial legitimacy, public trust, and confidence. And that's what we're talking about. And without that, we can make all the policies that we would want to do, make all the substantive interventions, but if the public, if our people don't have confidence in the legitimacy of the systems, then I think we're wasting our time. And women have a meaningful role to play in that regard, and I think you spoke to that. You spoke about women's participation and they contribute to strong, independent, accessible, and gender-sensitive institutions. You talked about your experience of when you were when you just assumed office and you were approached by the Ugandan women. I was quite upset because I'm going to tell my sister-in-law about that story. She comes from Uganda, so I must relay that story to her. And that is part of how do we encourage, how do we support, how do we advocate for an independent judiciary. In South Africa, it might be we are comfortable, we love boasting about the independence of the judiciary. And I suppose part of it is that the institutions, the wars that were waged, and the policies and the laws that were enacted support that institution. What we then need to do to support our brothers and sisters on the continent is to advocate, is to support, it's to say it loudly that the independence of the judiciary is important. And I think women contribute to that kind of institution support and institution awareness. But the most interesting thing about the study talked about women's participation may and strengthen gender-sensitive decision-making. I don't know whether you agree with that, Mr. Dikhambuseneki. What your experience about women on the bench, because sometimes, truthfully said, we may experience it differently, because people, whether we like it or not, bring their own biases to the table, and sometimes women seem to think acting like use this one. Oh, I'm sorry. I hope people have been hearing me. If not, they haven't lost much. But that assertion is really a very controversial assertion. I hope it is correct that we as women, or we and the women judges, bring a gender nuanced play on decision making. And it might be an interesting topic for another day. We will invite you again. Meaza will invite you again, and we will unpack that because I'm not sure about it. But having said that, I do believe that women do make a difference on the bench. I do believe that they bring, inclusivity is always good. Inclusivity always brings awareness of other nuances, other circumstances, and I think women have a role, women have played a role in that regard. And I'm proud to look at my own country and look at the number of women judges that we have. The issue about is where are they in leadership positions? And I think the fight is about that. The next fight is about leadership. And again, you talked to the fact that you don't just assume leadership roles for the sake of assuming leadership roles. It's what you do with those roles. And I challenge all the women judges that are in this room that I hope they've heard you. I hope they're taking home the lessons learned, and I hope they'll make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Advocate Maroka. I see. That was very insightful and interesting. I would like to now call Ms. Pamela Nyawo to share her reflections and thoughts on tonight's lecture.
Esteemed guests, good evening. It's a pleasure to be here tonight and to be in such great company. I would like to comment a little bit on what Judge Muckleneuk said on the disappearance, if I can call it that, of women once they have obtained these LLB degrees. We're also struggling to have students interested in philosophy, for example, where we can talk about gender-based violence. There just doesn't seem to be any interest, which is puzzling because of late when you look at the judgments, you will realize that there is a recurring theme there about the gender-based violence being a sketch, being a pandemic. So you would think that there would be more women interested in pursuing such kinds of studies, but unfortunately we do not have. I only have one student that I'm currently supervising, and he's interested in researching judges and women judges in particular. So I think it's one of those questions that we need to sit down and ask ourselves, because I think what led me into feminism was not men hate. I know the minute I say I'm a feminist, everyone is like, oh God, she's going to start. Ooh. No, I'm not a men hater. I'm a mother. I love women, I love men. I don't see difference there unless I am called to see difference. So for me, feminism is about bringing both men and women together. It's not about creating division. So I also love philosophy and sociology, which is why I'm here today. And just to build on Judge Mengistu's discussion on the role of the judiciary as it intersects with women and justice in the context of GBV, I'll speak specifically to the South African situation. So since 1994, and with the continuity in the rise of sexual offenses, women as survivors and victims of GBV have persistently fought for legal reform and have remained consistent in their pursuit of justice, either as individuals or as a collective. So this illustrates that women in the Global South are not average third world women. As opposed to being timid and disengaged, they have shaped law and policy numerous times, even though much work still needs to be done. It's a journey of sisterhood, determination, strength, and collective action. While there are various judgments that illustrate collective and individual action by women, in customary law, there is, for example, the Jezile versus the state and others judgment. I'll briefly discuss two important court judgments on sexual violence where social justice outcomes have been achieved through a strong feminist presence and women representation. The two judgments briefly discussed here have a profound effect on the law, women, and communities, and they also demonstrate the judiciary's commitment to the spirit and purpose of the Constitution. So I start with State versus Gama. I know that a lot of you might know this one. Please try and remember it. It's a 2014 judgment. It's an example of such a coalition and marks an important turning point in women's politics and the legal history of South African criminal law. The case was about the brutal gang rape and murder of Anin Boysen that took place in 2013 in Bredasdorp. Justice in this case did not merely stop at conviction, where the perpetrator was sentenced to life imprisonment. The activism against rape and femicide during the trial by various women activists and feminists, including the ANC Women's League, expedited the rollout of sexual offences courts, which had been introduced in 1993, but for some reason had been put on hold. So these courts help with the speedy prosecution of GBV. And they have reinforced the establishment of a victim-centered court system that is efficient, responsive, and effective, reducing the likelihood of secondary victimization. The second case I'd like to briefly touch on is a decision on sisterhood and brotherhood in Chabalala versus the state and Duli versus the state in 2019, which is a constitutional court judgment on gang rape that had taken place in Tembisa. It was delivered by Matopo J. The Constitutional Court had to decide whether the accused persons who were present at a rape scene but who did not participate in the actual rape and who neither aided nor abetted the perpetrators could be found guilty of rape. The court decided this question in the affirmative. The judgment is hailed as both constitutionally compliant and feminist in its altering the patriarchal common law principle of common purpose in rape. The patriarchy of rape adjudication through the sexist application of the common law through the common law doctrine of common purpose was finally chipped away. The female judges, Victor J. and Kampepe J., in their support of women's plight on rape, delivered separate feminist judgments. Victor J. engaged with insights from feminist legal theory, which were raised during court proceedings, which sought to center the debate on the dignity and privacy of women. On the other hand, Kampepe J. did the same, and she also specifically reflected on the erasure of black female sexuality in rape discourse as an injustice. In closing, I will briefly not talk on violence against women now, but in closing, I want us all to recall with honor and gratitude the late Mrs. Irene Grootboom, whose name became known worldwide for enforcing the state's obligation to respect socio-economic rights, especially of the homeless. The Grootboom Constitutional Court decision on socio-economic rights found that the state had not complied with its obligations and provided an order compelling the government to take an action on socio-economic grounds. So in this case, we see that women's actions, regardless of class, as shown in this judgment, may sometimes not yield immediate, satisfactory, and just outcome. But the point is made. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Nyawo, for sharing with us your views on feminism and for highlighting those pertinent judgments relevant to human rights and female women's rights. I'd now like to call Ms. Danielle Visser to share her thoughts and reflections. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, Lady Justice Mengistu, and esteemed colleagues. As mentioned by Lady Justice Mengistu, although there is an undeniable contribution by women in delivering justice, they still face a number of barriers to fully participating and benefiting from the justice system in Africa. Discriminatory laws and harmful cultural practices are two such barriers that limit women's access to justice. The idea of traditional gender roles in which a woman is the primary caregiver and the man is the breadwinner perpetuates the inequality women face. This stereotype limits female economic participation. Although numerous international legal instruments, as well as the regional instruments of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights and the Maputo Protocol, oblige member states to take measures to address such harmful gender stereotypes, slow progress has been made in this regard. Labour law specifically often exasperates these stereotypes. In South Africa, the Van Wyk case, which is currently before the Constitutional Court, is an excellent example of how labour law, which fails to accommodate adequate paternal leave provisions following the birth of a child, can reproduce harmful stereotypes. The case, which on the face of it appears to deal with men's equality rights and formal equality measures, has the potential to have impactful and substantive equality results. If the court chooses to extend parental leave to include fathers, it would be signaling to our country that it is not only the mother's responsibility to care for the children, but that instead it is a shared responsibility amongst partners. It would level the playing field for women who are often not employed due to employers' fears about accommodating maternity leave requests and other parental leave responsibilities. It could significantly change how people of South Africa view gender roles. This applies to the formal legal profession as well. As alluded to by Justice Mukumi, a study conducted by the Law Society of South Africa indicated that there are approximately 13% more female law graduates than male law graduates. However, the number of female practicing attorneys is 12% lower than that of their male counterparts. The survey indicates that this number, the number one driving factor for this discrepancy is that women were expected to prioritize child rearing over career aspirations. This then further impacts the number of suitable female candidates for judicial positions, ultimately limiting female participation in the formal justice system. The second major barrier presents this patriarchal view of women in the form of harmful cultural practices. Practices such as female genital mutilation, child brides, and sex-selective practices reinforce the idea that a girl child and her physical autonomy are less valuable than that of her male counterparts. These practices, which shape the perception of a woman's function in society, are deeply detrimental to the achievement of gender equality, as well as female economic participation. Research has shown that in many African households, the resource distribution amongst the children is often unequal, favoring the boy child. This includes access to nutrition, clothing, and education. This restriction on access to education limits the role of women in delivering justice in the formal sector. It also perpetuates the practices themselves, as research has indicated that an increase in access to education lowers the risk of the girl child being exposed to FGM, child bride practices, and it also has an impact on parents' view of sex-selective practices. As raised by Lady Justice Mengistu, the question is now, what is the way forward? Investing in education is therefore key in addressing these harmful practices and thereby increasing equal opportunity to participate in justice delivery. Legal reform addressing the issues of gender equality should be considered, including assessing all legislative provisions which may directly or indirectly promote harmful gender stereotypes. And as Justice Maumi alluded to, grassroots organizations should be supported by governments, as these activism measures act as a front line for social change. Ultimately, the continent stands to benefit greatly by recognizing and empowering women as active, transformative agents driving justice.
Thank you very much, Ms. Visser, for highlighting to us some of the barriers that women face in delivering justice in South Africa, and for your insightful recommendations on how to overcome some of these barriers. I'd like to thank our esteemed panel for enriching our understanding and sparking thoughtful dialogue on the themes presented tonight. You've captured the essence of the lecture and added your valuable thoughts and insights on the content of the lecture. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please give them a warm round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, we're now going to move to the question and answer session of this lecture. I will be opening the floor to your questions, but I'd first like to please call Lady Justice Mengistu to please join us on the podium. Thank you. Some house rules. We ask that when you ask a question, you please introduce yourself and where you are from, because we would like to know. Mention which speaker your question is addressed to, if it's addressed to a specific speaker. We also ask that you keep your question brief, concise, and to the point. I will take 4 questions and then allow the participants to answer, and then take another round of 4 questions. Do we have someone on the floor with the microphone? Yes, we do. Ladies and gentlemen, please feel free to raise your hand should you have a question. I see we have a question over there at the back.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Yolokazi Mfuto. I am from the Eastern Cape, Kwamatoli, Eqesi, but I'm based here in Pretoria, at the University of Pretoria, and I also work for DDP. But firstly, I have a comment. A couple of days ago, I was watching the Concord case, One thing that stood out for me was the fact that the bench has changed. I saw a woman who looks like me. And I believe that when young people in South Africa are watching the news, they see an update of what happened at Concord. They see people who look like them. Then they see that possibilities are there, that anything I can do. And for us to motivate women to do things, we must show them that things can be done. So I really commend South African judiciary for actually heeding the call for gender equality, for us to see women on the bench, for us to see women standing there, for us to see women doing things. That becomes important. My question is on gender-based violence and sexual harassment in South Africa. Currently, my belief is that our system, our criminal justice system, does not cater for rape survivors, survivors of murder, survivors of rape, harassment, and so forth. They have to stand in court. The circumstances and the entire room and the entire investigation is not friendly for the person who is a survivor, but the perpetrator is protected at all costs. How do we then change the system to ensure that people, it's easier to go and report your partner that's abusing you at home? It's easier to go and pursue a case of murder against where if your sister was abused and then she was murdered. How do you make sure that the system is accessible? It's easier to actually make sure that you attend the cases until they are finished. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your question. I see we have another question in the front here from the gentleman.
Good evening. My name is Cameron Modisani, and I'm the Deputy Executive Dean of the College of Accounting Sciences. And our question is directed to Advocate Moroka. You know, I was watching the Concord case as well, I think 2 days ago or so. And Justice Rogers made a comment to Advocate Toby that advocates these days charge exorbitant fees. And it's quite true. The fact that in this country, most of our people obviously live in abject poverty, and the fact that to get access to justice, you need to have money. So the question is, what can be done for the ordinary citizen in terms of getting access to justice and the law? And also, why is it that advocates are expensive? Why are they so expensive? Please explain that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see we have a question over there from the lady.
Good evening, and thank you very much for this opportunity. My name is Margaret Molefe, and I'm from the South African BRICS Youth Association. I'd just like to make a comment to any of the panelists on your thoughts on educating young people. We are seeing in South Africa that we don't understand the basic concepts of, for example, consent. So how would we get young people to understand such issues so that if they are victims of violence or anything of that sort, they can sort legal justice? Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll take the fourth question over there at the back.
Thank you so much. My name is Kongelan Chauke from the Department of Tuition, Support and Facilitation of Learning here at Unisa. The main speaker spoke about the dissatisfaction and continued dissatisfaction of the African people with the justice system. So with regard to that, most of the judgments that people complain about, they get to indicate the type of law that is applicable to that particular case and actually give or dissect the law and give detailed law, but it affects adversely the citizens or the African people that would be receiving that law. So my question is whether the courts should be the courts of justice or should be the courts of law. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. Regard to the first question, I'd like to respectfully ask Lady Mengistu if she would answer that one.
I didn't notice that there will be a question and answer session, so I had a glass of wine, so... I think the question that was raised by the gentleman, the last speaker.
The first speaker on gender-based violence and how do we change our system.
Okay, but she raised a very specific case, South African case, I thought. So yeah. But let me comment on So it is a very interesting question, and this is about activism in the judiciary. How much of that should we be tolerating is a question. There are some judges who are very strict in interpreting the law as it is, like the letter of the law. But there are those who are more open to interpret the law broadly and taking into account contextual situations and changing times and so on. So it depends on the not only the judiciary but the particular judge. In my speech, I was referring to the judiciaries in India. Yeah. Particularly, there is this famous judge called Justice Bhagwati. He was very famous for judicial activism. Whether it's on environmental issues, social issues, they sort of they didn't follow the traditional strict interpretation of the law. So it depends on the judge, and there are theories, of course, around this particular issue. And I think my sister here she raised a very important question about people's experience vis-a-vis the judiciary. I remember one of my staff members, at some point she was telling me her mother had a litigation court case that ran over many years because of appeals and counter appeals and so on and so on. So she told me when my mother has a court date, she said the entire week, she said we'll disturb it because she is very agitated. She doesn't know what to expect, and she remembers that as a very painful experience. So, that's why I really pushed the judges in the judiciary to be, predictable to the extent possible, and also to the support staff to be friendly and responsive. Because one example I use is people don't come to the courts because they choose to come. It's because they have to come. So consider this as a hospital, people go to the hospital, because they need a cure. So it is not easy because hundreds of people, thousands of people come to the court every day, and with support staff that are paid very low and very low motivation, they have to deal with all these demands. But through training and supporting them and improving their working condition, we try to improve this the attitude of both the judges and the support staff. So these are some of the mechanisms to try to improve people's experience in the judiciary.
I'll try to respond to the question on gender-based violence. And I'm going to be very honest with you. It's not something that we can wake up tomorrow and say we have an answer. It's not something that will be solved. That's just my view. I'm sorry if I sound pessimistic. That we can say 100 years from now would be solved. It starts from home as well. How we raise our children. We should raise them with love and respect for other people. We need to teach them that the basics of life, humanity, ubuntu, judges, in my view, are already doing tremendous work. They are educating us on the importance of respecting others, like your right to equality, your dignity, your privacy. I think we've pushed them, they've heard us. Now let's work together. The police officers, some of the stories that you hear are just mind-boggling. I was listening to this other lady, she said she went to the Guyana Magistrate Court to lay a charge of rape. And then this woman, the police officer said to her, and it's a she, I'm not judging. She said, but he said he's sorry. And I'm thinking to myself, goodness, I mean, but the person is there, he needs help from the police, and you are telling her to forgive the perpetrator because the perpetrator said that he's sorry. So it's not just the judges. We all have a lot of work to do, from home, at school, everybody. And it's not something that you can wake up tomorrow and say it's done. We can leave it to the judiciary. It's a collective. I think the Constitution has laid a foundation. We just need to move on with it, you know. Thank you.
But I think you've also answered the question about consent, because the young person wanted to know that too. So where are we now? Oh, the fees charged by council. Which one? No, I think you probably did answer, even though you didn't targetly edit. I'm not going to answer it. You are, but I think possibly the first part of your question about how we strengthen and empower people to prosecute their civil claims and seek justice. I think these are policy decisions. You have the legal aid system, you have law clinics. I think it is a societal push that we should strengthen those organizations and strengthen the system that dispenses aid to the poor, as in legal aid. It's a bit of a mess out there, but I think those are the institutions that do it, and we should support them, and we should advocate for support of those organizations. As for the fees charged by advocates, I'm really going to take the fifth.
I'm going to attempt to address the question regarding consent with rape victims. There is obviously currently the case that deals with tacit consent that was heard in the Supreme Court of Appeal, and I think that's a really positive step forward in dealing with those matters. The other thing that's important to remember, and we see this in South Africa coming up with the educational bill that wants to encourage sexual education. And the idea is that if we are at a stage where we can teach our children appropriate sexual education, not necessarily the birds and the bees, but to recognize when there is an inappropriate touch of their bodies and they are able to communicate that, then we can instill within them the confidence to be able to really determine what consent is and what's not. So it really, again, starts with education, and I think the Bella Bill is looking into this moving forward, and I'm hoping that those issues of consent are going to become clearer as we move forward with those things. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Meaza. I'd like to apologize to Lady Justice Mengistu to put you on the spot with our question and answer session, but we actually are very privileged to have you on our podium and to be able to ask you some of the questions on the issues raised tonight, so thank you for accommodating us. We'd now like to take another round of 4 questions. The questions are very interesting and we're enjoying them. So we'll take one over here.
Thank you very much, Program Director. My name is Matthew Nevilo. I'm from the Department of International Relations and Cooperation, and also a candidate for board exam for admission as an attorney of South Africa. You know, Justice Mengistu spoke about the convention that is under manufacturing at the African Union level for the suppression of violence against women, which I believe it will fall under the purview of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights, and based in Gambia, and will also believe that it will also fall under the jurisdiction of the African Court, which is based in Arusha. My question is that, for the purpose of enforcement, because we have got a number of international human rights instruments at AU level and UN level, how is the ordinary indigent member of society is going to be able to have an access to those enforcement forums like an African court? I thank you.
Thank you for your question. We can have this one and then over there.
Good evening. I am Dr. Mantipu Masichaba. I'm the Executive Dean acting in the College of Economic and Management Sciences. I'm also the head of capacity building at the BRICS Women Business Alliance. And I'm also the future Minister of Finance in South Africa. Madam Justice, in comparison to the ANED Bank, we also struggled with the YWBN, but we eventually got it right in February 2024. Considering your extensive experience in judicial leadership and the legal frameworks that support financial inclusion, what are your thoughts on integrating African customary practices such as communal asset ownership or traditional guarantees into modern financial systems to empower women entrepreneurs and to promote economic equity? I'm asking this because they say you can give a woman 100 rand and she'll exponentiate it to 1,000 rands, but we seem not to give them any guarantees, and we think because they are poor they cannot do it. So how can we use those traditional methods in the banks, and if that is possible? Thank you.
Thank you. We will take a question over here and then one from that side of the room.
Thank you very much. They're laughing at me because I've been raising my hand and you will not see me. My name is Edith Paswana and I'm the Executive Dean for the Thabo Mbeki African School of Public and International Affairs. And there's something that really worries me, and I must appreciate these beautiful women in front here for what they are doing, and also for standing in the gap for many of us. But there's something that I don't understand. What happens when a judge becomes the perpetrator of violence? Because people like us, we are looking up to you. This is where we bring matters to you. There's an interesting case here in South Africa in the Eastern Cape of a particular judge. And I think many of you know about it. And I'm sorry if Judge Mbeneng is here. Because I'm really interested in it, because I'm looking at how this case will be sorted out eventually. Because these kind of cases, we also have them here at universities, not this particular one. But here at universities, the same problem with professors abusing young girls within the institution. And in many cases, these cases, they don't end up anywhere. And I think it's the same in the judiciary, as I'm watching very closely, because that's an interesting case for me. My second question is around the perception that black advocates are poor or they don't have, how can I put it, are struggling. Okay, let me say many black advocates are struggling. Is this a perception or a reality? Because I see certain chambers. There's a chamber, I don't want to name it, next to the High Court of Johannesburg. I come from Johannesburg. And there are problems, serious problems there that I cannot even mention here. And I'm asking myself, are they not getting cases or what? Are they only working with the state only? What is happening? I think SC gets me. SC gets my point. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. We have time for just one more question. If anyone on this side, we will take the lady over here.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Honourable. I'm from the company called EBJ Holdings. I'm the Chief Executive Officer. I'm also a member of Women in Mining and also a member of Institute of Directors, South Africa. I also a glass of wine, so I had to return my. I've got two questions which I'm directed to my Honourable Meaza. With regard to access to justice, as a young girl who grew up in a rural area, how can women access to justice be improved in Africa, particularly in rural areas? And my second question is, what role can women play in promoting access to justice for marginalized communities? And the third question is based on women in leadership. What strategies can be employed to increase the number of women in leadership positions within the justice sector in South Africa? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your questions. Let us start with Lady Justice Mengistu for the questions addressed to her, please.
Sorry, what was the question before the financial? There was a question raised before. Oh, African Union, yeah, thank you. I think that's a very important question. Ratification of international instruments is one thing, but the challenge is implementation, as you alluded to. We have the Maputo Protocol, we have other important conventions at the African level, but a consolidated convention on violence against women, this will be the first one that we're expecting to be adopted by the Assembly of Head of States in next February. So in terms of the enforcement at the regional level, yes, you're right. These are the structures, Banjul Commission as well as the court in Arusha. But more than that, the aspiration is to domesticate this regional convention at the national level and to adopt national laws based on this international standard. So that's why the advocacy by civil society groups and academics and all key stakeholders is quite relevant. We can use the standard of the convention and push for adoption of national laws. But also in some systems, international conventions can become directly part of the national law. I don't know how it is in South Africa. So in that case, it's up to advocates and up to activists to use the convention once it's adopted by the respective country. But as you said, the regional mechanisms are there, but it's always a challenge because if Arusha court decides a case, unless the government is open and willing sometimes they sort of just ignore unless they are sensitive to political peer pressure and so on. So the most important thing is using this convention at the national level. So in regards to the bank, I think we developed a unique approach. Initially also when we started to work to promote the idea of the bank, it was a little bit confusing because people used to inquire, is it microfinance? Is it a formal bank? So they say, oh, if it's a formal bank, women don't have money. So why do you, how do you gonna realize that? So it was a challenge. It took us about 3 years to just promote the idea. We said, women are the future, and the women, we can tap into the potential of women and make this bank a success. And I remember Madam Zuma was heading the African Union at that time. She was in Addis Ababa. So when she heard about this initiative, she was very happy. She said, anyway, what is micro about women? And she really supported us. So the model is a little bit different. It is not exclusively women's bank. In Tanzania, they tried that, and unfortunately, it didn't work. So this is like a universal banking. It caters to everyone, but we have a department that focuses on women financial solutions. And 64% of the share is owned by women, the rest is owned by men as well. So it is a very unique model. In terms of guarantee fund, your idea is very interesting. How do we sort of link with traditional resource mobilization mechanisms? We haven't looked into that so far, but we use guarantee fund through the support of development partners also, like USAID. If a woman has a good idea, but she doesn't have a collateral, so they provide that guarantee fund. And also we work with microfinance institutions as well. But your idea is also very innovative.
Thank you so much.
Can I add that you might just want to look at the WDB model? You would know about it. The Women's Development Bank, ran by our previous First Lady. Becky. Which question is Can I ask Madam Seneke to answer your question? You would be very good at it. It's a question about, because I've fought for 42 years trying to answer that question. It's debilitating, it's disheartening. So maybe one of my male colleagues can talk about it. The struggle, the women's struggle, not the first part of the question, the second part of the question about women's struggles at the bar. He knows our struggles.
Another woman, at the bar. Last at the bar, like 30 years ago, after I came in charge for many years. Colleague, Madam Justice, and panelists, I think all of you have done excellently to remind us how backward we are. We men and we collectively as society. The senior counsel is right, she was my junior. When I was senior counsel, she was my junior, so was Mujangu Gumbi, so was Miss Mayet, so was many other. So I'm one of those who really tried my bit to try and rear young women and actually work with them. I reared this young woman. I invited many women judges to come and act at the Constitutional Court when I was deputy chief and when I was acting chief. There are intersecting difficulties. Out of law school, not all would come and practice at the bar because of multiple challenges that are horrific. Samonyala, Samairabana, you know, the whole range of things that work against. Oh, I'm sorry, you need an interpreter. You have an interpreter, you got it, yeah, sure. And then once they're at the bar, the whole stereotypes kick in about whether in fact they're sufficiently competent. Executive Dean, you were talking about whether black lawyers are less competent or are they struggling. Even in itself is a horrific question you're asking. The truth is many black African lawyers are excellent at doing their work. I'm an example, she's an example, and there are many other examples of people of color in this country who are really excellent. So it's hardly there. The range of architectural, intersecting, structural difficulties that confront women, and they replicate themselves in a variety of sides. In the economy, in developmental efforts, in relationships with professional bodies, and so on. So the challenges are multiple, Vanabak. But young women of today, I'm very impressed. I'm a retired judge now, and I look at young practitioners, young counsel, they're truly fired up. And women leaders, so I don't want us to take everybody and throw them into the rubbish bin, like everybody is just, many women are actually defining their pros. Their personal and collective agency is, I'm impressed. I'm totally excited about what, even this evening is about that. It's about that. It's really showcasing our determination to display our collective as well as our individual roles and in ways that will help change society. So I don't think it's out there, but a lot is happening. Look, of all the divisions we have of the High Court, nearly half of them are led by women leaders. Think about it. There was one judge, Van der Heever, she was called. She was the only judge, white, blue, pink, lemon, or yellow. There was one woman judge in 1994. Now this patriarchy living side by side with apartheid and with a whole range of other backwardness that we had in our society. But look at where we are. So I choose hope, I choose energy, I choose a society that is ever re-engaging itself and creating new advocacy as you are doing this evening and as you have done by coming to visit us. And I think we are making, gender-based violence tends to make us all so angry that we tend to miss the wonderful end of how societies, even in Africa, is gradually moving. Must we do more? Of course we must do much more. But I would like you to say, I've had many women advocates and practitioners appear before me. I've trained many and I've seen the younger ones that I had not even had contact with are vibrant. They're self-assured. Their agency is multiple and strong. And they see all of you, like the lady who stood up there and said, I saw Women Judge asking questions yesterday at the Constitutional Court. I think we're doing okay. We can do better. But I choose hope. I choose our country, our continent, Africa, taking up the cudgels. And women are right up front there. And it was admirable when you listed all the women chief justices we've had so far. only 7. But very soon we'll have more. In fact, only week after next, I'm going to Zimbabwe to talk to all the lawyers and the judges there. Hopefully to energize them, that they choose hope and not to bend over and down because they think that their circumstances are unbearable. They have to lift up and embrace their new history and create their new history. If you think where we come from, we were oppressed to nothing. We were nothing. We were near slaves, and look at where we are now. So it can be turned around in every African country currently going through difficulties. And those doing well should be encouraged. You wanted me to say something, I've said it, I hope, look at the smile on your face.
That question for us. It's a difficult one, and we appreciate your insightful views.
But I do think you did ask an important question, and it has to do with sexual harassment in the workplace. And I think our main speaker did touch on it slightly, but it is such a vast topic. I'm not sure we can give you a one-liner answer to it, but it is a vexed question. I think we need to be working at how we strengthen instruments and policies that have to do with sexual harassment at the workplace.
I think I like all the interventions, but also the intervention from the Deputy Chief Justice. Thank you, Deputy Chief Justice, because I think the message is clear. The glass is not half empty, it is half full. And that is absolutely correct. When I graduated from law school in the mid-80s, I was the only girl in my class. 50 boys and myself. So now we have 30% girls, 40% girls in different colleges. And that is a huge progress. And I think it's good to also acknowledge and realize that. So the young lady inquired about access to justice and leadership. Again, my response will be the same. In terms of access to justice, African women lawyers associations and legal aid clinics, they have done amazing work. And these kind of programs, I don't know here in South Africa, but in many countries, they are even embedded within universities. And there are many legal aid programs. So I think one of the most important mechanisms for providing access to justice is civil society, through civil society organizations. And the judge said about community outreach and support from the government to civil society organizations. They have to be strengthened and they have to be multiplied. After 27 years, I went to visit the Ethiopia Women Lawyers Association. And I saw women, they are lined up there with their children, sitting there waiting for legal aid service. My emotion was sort of conflicting because I was thinking, this situation, how long will this situation continue, was one of my my questions. On the other hand, I felt good because I felt there is at least an institution, and the institution is sustained, and there is a place where women can go and ask for legal aid support. So civil society organizations remain key in terms of access to justice. Leadership, again, I mean, if we look at the data, whether it is women parliamentarians or women in the cabinet or women in local leadership, there is a huge improvement. But of course, most of the time I see the television, it's like 100% men. Or delegation going outside the country, 100% men. And once I remember, there was this very funny lady. She saw some members of delegation from my country, and she said, there were 11 of them, they're all men. She said, I thought it is a football team, and I ran away. So it is a work in progress, and young women, I think I throw back the challenge to you. Young women should continue to push. We pushed to get where we are now, and the young women have to continue to push. You can't take anything for granted. So I think we are here to support you. You can step on our shoulders, but you should step in and continue the fight.
I'd like to thank all of you for your very interesting but challenging questions, and to our participants for your responses, and for allowing us to put you on the spot and to pick your brain. So thank you for that. We have unfortunately run out of time with the Q&A session, but you're welcome to speak to our participants directly about any further questions during dessert after we close the formal program. And as we approach the close, of this evening, I would like to invite Professor Moloko Sepoto, the Acting Registrar of Unisa, to deliver the vote of thanks. Thank you.
Program Director, Professor Kazim. I must admit that when I woke up this morning, I knew that I'm expected to come and deliver a vote of thanks to a highly powered audience of important leaders, superb thinkers who are well trained and experienced to deliver legal opinions and judgments with precision and maximum clarity. It was not an easy feeling. I felt like I'm going to face a full bench without any legal assistance. But because I understood the reason why I was requested to do this, so simple. If you look at your program, you'll understand the reason why I'm here. I was requested to come and confirm what you know. If you look at your program, I think I'm the only man. I didn't know whether they requested me to do this because they wanted me to confirm that women at Unisa are extremely active and not passive. It could be that, but it could be, my name is Moloko. You never know whether it's a she or a he. Allow me, on behalf of our Vice Chancellor, Professor Muckleneuk, on behalf of our Chair of Council, Dr. Dan Musia, on behalf of our Chancellor, His Excellency President Thabo Mbeki, to thank you all. I want to start by saying that our Chancellor, I know VC, wherever he is following us through he's watching us through live streaming. And let me also thank him before I thank everyone. VC, starting with you, we appreciate your welcome address. And as usual, you did it the way only Professor Lengabula could do it. And we thank you for that. As you were giving your address, you reminded me of a Swahili proverb, which loosely translated says, a visitor is a guest for only 2 days. After 2 days, you join us in whatever we do. And I want to say to you all, our visitors, this is your university. Please join us in educating the masses. I want to say to you, you can learn a thing or two from this program tonight that Unisa women are extremely active and not passive. Let me come to Justice, Honourable Justice Baratang Mchumi. You set the scene perfectly well, and you cultivated our minds for a better reception of what was to follow. And as you rightly indicated, you managed to give us pointers. And you gave us a few examples of successful women. The most important of them all, Rain Queen Mujaji. It shows where VC Bakone are successful. And you gave us other examples here, Advocate Khomotso Moroka being one of them. We have seen what she did, forcing Justice Muckleneuk to give an impromptu talk. It shows Justice again that South African women are powerful. You tried to plead with the VC to come to your rescue. Unfortunately, she ignored you. I also want to thank our honored and honorable guest speaker, Lady Justice Mengistu. We really appreciate your presentation. This is one of the university's flagship programs, this mentorship program. I mean, this, my apologies, this lecture is one of the university's flagship programs. And what I am taking away from your lesson, what I find very profound, you said you are not doing this for recognition, but the commitment. I wish all of us in this hall, when we go back to our workstations tomorrow, we'll bear that in mind, that we are not doing it for recognition, but the commitment. And I believe that I'm representing the audience very well in categorizing your presentation as not only inspiring, but full of challenges. We learned that you enjoy mentoring young females. And I want to say to you, Justice, you'll be a visitor today and tomorrow. When you go back home, that learning center you talked about, please go and adopt a few of our women there and mentor them. We'll appreciate that. And I believe that it is only through this kind of intensity and direct and apologetic approaches that as a country we will move forward. Thank you, Justice. We really appreciate that. I also want to thank our presenters who came here to respond to Justice Mengistu's talk. Advocate Khomotso Moroka, Mrs. Fesser, and Ms. Nyao, we thank you for agreeing to be discussant this evening, and you played the role so well. It seemed like you were sitting down with Lady Justice and Justice Mchunu in order to make sure that there is a thread running through all your presentations. We appreciate that and we thank you. And I hope you heard what the Lady Justice said. Unisa is your home. Unisa expects you to come and contribute, to come and mentor the young ones here, even though we know that Unisa women are so active. We thank you so much. Program Director, I think I shall have failed in my responsibility if I don't thank you. It's not an easy task to control, to instruct judges. I didn't envy you, but at the end of the day, because they made life so easy for us all, you were very good and excellent in driving this program. We thank you, and I think when I'm of your age, I'm going to be a judge. Thank you for that. Let me also thank Justice Muckleneuk for being hijacked. Yeah, it really shows that wisdom comes with age. If I was hijacked like you, I would have requested 2 weeks to prepare the speech that you gave. Thank you, Justice. This is your home. We know you, and we say, please come back again tomorrow so that we can again abuse you to give another talk. Azanian, Pals, and Sable, are they still here? Siti halala to you, Wafwetu. We really enjoyed your renditions, and we heard you when you requested Seana Marena. I want to say to you, Unisa is one special university. Unisa listens, Unisa hears, and Unisa responds. Unisa is now responding to your request. Come January 13, application window is going to be reopened. Bear that in mind, and let's take it from there. You'll get your Seana Marena. Thank you, guys. I want to thank all our colleagues who assisted to make sure that we meet here today. I cannot mention them one by one, but all of you colleagues from DIA, colleagues from multimedia, colleagues from university estates, colleagues from the colleges, in fact, colleagues across the institution, we really thank you for having made this possible. When I say colleagues from university estates, I include colleagues across, from protection services, cleaning services, catering services, in fact, colleagues from across. We really thank you. We appreciate the good work that you are doing. And we are saying to you, even in future, please do as you are doing now. Let me also thank you all colleagues in the hall and those that are following the proceedings visually. We don't take your presence here for granted. This is your university. This is your home. We can only do so much with your support. And let me single out the president of our student leaders together with his team. President, we appreciate the good work that you are doing. And we recognize your presence here. We say even in future. We are saying as you will be driving back home, please be safe on our roads. There is another Founders Lecture next year. The VC wants to welcome you to that one. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Sepoto, for your heartfelt words of gratitude and for highlighting the extensive contributions that were made to put this great event together. We also appreciate you capturing the essence of the contributions made by each speaker. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I would now like to call Professor Lenkabula and Dr. Dan Musia, the chairperson of the University Council, to present the gifts to our participants.
I don't often have time to instruct the public protector, even when she has 2 minutes, because she's apologizing. But I think I want to take the opportunity to demonstrate to all of us some of the work that the country is doing to projecting the best intellectuals who are young to serving society. So I'm going to invite you to present the presents with you in the absence of our Chancellor. But also it's because there's dessert, Kalahari is being served. I'm worried that people might go before Kalahari is served, dessert. So let me take this opportunity. I also want to announce that for 2025, I'm so sorry, colleagues. I'm so sorry you're doing your work and you're trying to run. Let me not compete with you. I want to just alert you to the fact that next year we're quite appreciative of Justice Mengistu for doing the 2024 Founders Lecture. Last year it was Madame Salif, the first woman president in the continent. And next year, I want to give you just a little bit of a surprise, but it will not be. We have a professor, yes, the Columbia University professor, Professor Sachs. He will be delivering the Founders Lecture next year. Professor Sachs is quite involved with the UN, but also all of us know him as an avid agitator for global justice. And I think we are quite appreciative that he will be coming. So I'm saying, if you're busy, please diarize it. We plan ahead. As Unisa, we already are in 2027. So let's make sure that your 2026 is in good plan. We'll just tell you the date. Thank you very much. I now request the public protector to assist me to share the small tokens of expression of our appreciation from all of you, from the university and from the leadership of the university, as gratitude, as an expression of gratitude to Her Excellency Honourable Mengistu. Thank you. Oh my God, I hope it's not heavy. Okay. The lights are a bit more. This is for who? Then I would like Justice Muchumi to please, I know the justices are worried because they have to declare these presents. We try to make them at a level that doesn't put you in trouble for declaration. So we know what the declaration's rules are for you as judges. So we're not putting you in any quagmire. So please, you're welcome, Justice Muchumi. Oops. Is it heavy? No. Then I'd like to request Senior Counsel Moroka for also a small token of appreciation from the university. And of course, let me invite Advocate Pamela Nyao to also come and join us in the sharing.
Thank you so much.
And of course, we're proud of our alumnus who's at the University of Pretoria, but still makes time to come to the fountain and the foundation that formed her as a lawyer. Advocate Visser. Let me request the colleagues, therefore, to enjoy themselves, to go and sit and have dessert, as has been requested. I'm going to hand over to you, Program Director, but colleagues, Public Protector, safe travels. Thank you. Colleagues, can I... the Public Protector was here, so I'm told that the fermented beverages must be finished. Otherwise, we will have a letter saying we did not work on our consumption. She has looked at the levels of participation in the percentages. So I request that at least when we go, we are all happy. And if you've heard a Christian story, you would have multiplied. Thank you very much. I appreciate. I'm handing over to you. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, what a remarkable evening this has been. We leave here tonight inspired, enlightened, and motivated to contribute meaningfully to our communities and beyond. Thank you all for your presence and participation. Please enjoy dessert and the music and the rest of the evening. Thank you.